This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
You're joking.
I don't believe I've ever met him. I'm pretty sure I didn't meet him, and I just don't know anything about him.
Thanks, Donny. You're the best. England has suffered its second worst harvest on record, as in ever, after heavy rain last winter hit production of key crops, including but not limited to wheat and oats. Yeah, but never mind about wheat and oats. It's much worse than that. The cold, damp weather stretching from last autumn through this spring and early summer hit the rapidly developing UK wine industry particularly hard.
Booze.
With producers saying that harvests are down by 75%. What? We'll have to stick to that French stuff.
Disgusting.
England's wheat haul is estimated to be 10 million tonnes, or 21% down on 2023. Winter barley was 26% down on last year, and the winter oilseed rape harvest was down by 32%. Why is it called rape? Can't they call it something else? I mean, of all the words in the world that they picked on, they had to pick that one, that four-letter word that begins with R and ends in ape. Why did they have to pick that one? In data released by the Department for the Environment and Food and Rural Affairs, they said that oilseed harvest was down by 32%, and farmers could lose £600 million on 5 key crops: wheat, winter and spring barley, oats and oilseed rape. Well, there goes my breakfast. Tom Lancaster, a land, food and farming analyst at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit, said, I've got no idea either. He said, but it sounds good though, don't it? He's a farming analyst at the Energy and Climate Intelligence Unit. He said this year's harvest was a shocker, and climate change is to blame. But, you know, as he is an expert in possession of facts, nobody was remotely interested in anything he had to say. It was probably due to the weather being woke, or God's displeasure at our hedonistic lifestyles, or it's probably Meghan Markle's fault. No! Yeah, thanks a lot, Meghan Markle. Is there nothing you won't do to try and ruin our lives or our lunch? Meanwhile, the Sahara is underwater. Not all of it, but, you know. Tornadoes and hurricanes are striking Florida. Greece is warning tourists that storms could ruin their holidays by lifting the towels that they put on their sun loungers at 4 o'clock in the morning before they've had a chance to use them. And basically everything that climate scientists said would happen eventually is happening now. In America, meanwhile, Republican Representative and Chief Dingaling Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying that the hurricane affecting the southern states was created by the Democrats to prevent Republicans from voting. The stupid is strong with this one. She's a big Donald Trump fan because, well, of course she is.
Don't be rude.
Seriously, America, would you like us to call someone to take you home? You look like you need help.
Oh, shut up!
Meanwhile, in this country, weather forecasters are predicting a freezing week ahead. It's like blooming winter outside. While also, in the very same newspaper, the people that are predicting a freezing week ahead are also predicting an Indian summer.
What?
Yeah, same people. On the one hand, temperatures are set to plunge to below freezing, and a slight dusting of snow is forecast on higher ground. Snow?
Oh, no.
In the Scottish Highlands and parts of the Lake District, higher ground will be prone to wintry weather. And the mercury in these areas is predicted to plunge to as low as -2 on Sunday morning. Wow. On the other hand, a new jet stream will arrive later next week to bring an abrupt end to the cold snap, and by Thursday the mercury should reach 20 degrees centigrade in Norfolk, wherever that is. This weekend it'll be cold with this rain sweeping in from the west. Sunday and Monday, bright for mostly, though a few showers are possible. But the Met Office said that temperatures were likely to rise above the October average next week, but it won't last, as the mercury is expected to drop back down again by the weekend. Would you like to hear the long-range forecast for the next 4 weeks?
No.
Don't blame you. Right, the next 2 weeks. At first, rain, showers, strong winds in the west or the northwest. Well, not just at first, I bet, in the northwest. I mean, I can check on that while you wait, but really, what's the point? I bet it's raining in the northwest right now. Just loading that information for you, caller. One moment, please. Okay, see, I was completely correct in every respect. It is raining in Glasgow right now. Do not even think about calling me to tell me it isn't, because it is. It will also be raining heavily tomorrow and... Oh, what? Not raining on Sunday, Monday or Tuesday? Pfft, rubbish. But it will be raining on Wednesday and raining on Thursday and raining on Friday and raining on Saturday and raining on Sunday and raining on Monday and raining on Tuesday and raining on Wednesday and raining on the following Thursday after that. Well, you won't be able to dry out, but you will be less moist, if that's any help. And then, last week of October, first week of November. Yes, that's right, it's almost November. It's practically Jesus' birthday. Potentially some wet and windy weather at first, but a trend toward more settled conditions in late October and early November, with it'll be cold at night, but potentially warm during the day. Potentially warm during the day? We'll take it. Jan says, hiya, Nick. I hope that nice Kemi Badback politician becomes our future Prime Minister. I love the way she pokes her tongue out for a fraction of a second after every 4 or 5 sentences. Have you noticed? No, I've tried not to look at her. For fear of turning to stone. It's so cute it makes me all warm and fuzzy, says Jan, who is lying, I bet. I hope she's designated a national treasure soon. Love your show, always the highlight of the week for us idiots that pay tax. The idiots that pay tax, you know.
The little people.
Yeah, not leprechauns. Do I want to see Kemi Bad Enoch's tongue?
No.
No, and furthermore...
No.
Yeah, put it away, Kemi. Nobody wants to see that. No, I've tried my very best not to see her at all, because it makes me, a bit bilious. Querulous and bilious at the same time. Can you believe that? Dan says, Florida has had a lot of wind this week. Do you know anybody who knows about wind? No, I don't know anybody who knows about wind.
I know a lot about wind.
Oh, that guy.
I know a lot about wind.
Yeah, he knows a lot about wind. He looks like a sort of person who knows a lot about wind. He looks like a person who experiences wind a lot. Your husband is probably very windy, Melania.
I don't care.
She's not that bothered. She's not even living in the same state as him. Never mind about separate bedrooms. Separate houses in separate states. Paul in Kent says, hi, Nick. According to the right-wing press, Meghan Markle is evil and every dress she wears causes fury. Yes. Fury as Meghan Markle dresses in brown. He says, I also found out that Labour will ruin the country with plans to give workers more rights, and they are Marxist champagne socialists. Who knew that the right-wing press was such a bastion of knowledge? Thanks for educating me, says Paul. Hey, we don't need no education. We don't need no thought control. Where is it? Oh, I'm on the wrong page. There it is.
Rock and roll!
Never mind, eh? We'll edit that out later. Don't worry about a thing. Everything is under control. I am a trained professional. Don't you try this at home. So I've got the workers' rights things. You want to start there? Oh, yeah, all right, then why not? Businesses face years of uncertainty as the result of government's phased introduction of major new workers' rights.
Oh, no.
Rights for workers? Can't think of anything worse. This is the typical hysterical reaction by the right-wing press about anything that's going to make workers less like slaves and more like they had a hand in making the profits that owners hoard. Every time a politician, usually Labour, suggests that workers should be treated as anything other than a disposable piece of property, the billionaire offshore-owned tax-averse press barons get a fit of the vapours you could see through concrete. What are they so frightened of? A document published by the Department for Business, and not that sort of business. The Department for Business and Trade admitted. Admitted. I mean, in another paper they could say boasted, but in the Mail they say admitted. A document published by the Department for Business and Trade admitted letting millions more staff sue their bosses from day one. And that will create concerns from businesses and risks unwelcome additional work for the tribunal system. But, only if the bosses have done something that would warrant them being sued, surely. I mean, suing a company is vastly expensive, hugely time-consuming, and the law, of course, favours the rich because the law was written by the rich, just like the tax laws. I mean, you wonder why some bazillionaire got to inherit the entire fortune from his father without paying a single solitary penny in inheritance tax. You know, like if his father owned most of London, for instance, just as an example. And his son inherited £10 billion and didn't pay a single solitary penny in inheritance tax. You might wonder, gosh, how did they manage that? It's because they're rich.
Correct.
And get this, the document published by the Department for Business and Trade also reveals that the landmark Employment Rights Bill is only the first stage of the shake-up.
What?
Yeah, just the first stage of the communisation of this once great nation. The future burdens on firms include, but are not limited... The future burdens on firms include the right to switch off, which will prevent managers from contacting staff out of hours. Isn't that absolutely terrible? For no one at all except unreasonable bosses who want their staff to work out of hours for nothing. There will also be a review into the system of parental leave and the introduction of, quotes, socio-economic duty, which will force public sector bodies to consider the impact of policies on different classes in society, leading to fears that the middle class will be squeezed out. Yeah, that's right, the middle class, who outnumber all the other classes combined and therefore wield the biggest number of votes, they're going to be squeezed out. Right. I mean, the class grades are A, B, C1, C2, D, E, right? And A, B is higher and middle management, C1, clerical and junior management. In other words, middle class. C2 is skilled manual workers who could also be middle class. And DE is semi or unskilled or the unemployed. They're your working class right there. And the middle class is 56% of the population, while the working class, 22%. Or 44 if you include the skilled manual workers, I mean, many of whom would not class themselves as working class. So what are the papers getting in a tizzy about? Not being subject to the boss calling at all hours when you aren't getting paid. They're freaking out about that. Staff getting the right to clock off if it gets too hot in their workplaces. You know, rather than faint or have a heart attack. Terrible. How will management cope other than by installing some basic air conditioning? And unions have already called for a maximum 30 degrees centigrade temperature for working indoors. That's 86 Fahrenheit, fact fans. Or 27 degrees for those doing strenuous work. Which none of the journalists writing this stuff up as a horror show would suffer through. I mean, they'd call it quits if the temperature went above balmy. Under a separate equality, race and disability bill due later this year, firms employing more than 250 people will have to report on the difference in pay between white and ethnic minority staff, which shouldn't cause them any concern if they pay people appropriately. They'll also have to show how they benefit the environment and communities when bidding for work, under plans to ensure social value is mandatory in contract design, which good businesses will already be doing. I mean, water companies, for instance, aren't. They aren't ensuring social value is mandatory in contract design. The reverse. And they should be punished. Over the next few years, bosses will also have to follow the progress of legislation and contribute to public consultations if they want to raise concern. Oh no, bosses will have input into the changes that affect them. Who are the monsters writing this stuff? New workers' rights include entitlement to bereavement leave, paternity leave and parental leave from day one in a job, although this will not be paid. And that in turn may give rise to businesses struggling to keep up with the ever-changing legal position and risk ending up in hot water. Get that? Businesses are going to have to keep up with the law. What? Like everyone else on Earth? How terrible for them. Jane Grattan, Deputy Director of Public Policy out of the British Chambers of Commerce, said, if the right balance is struck, then we have the potential to get more people into work and boost economic growth, which was not the quote that I'm sure that the Daily Mail wanted when they called her up on the phone. Because that sounds a little bit too positive. You're not a socialist, are you, Jane? And Alex Hall-Chen, Principal Policy Advisor for Employment at the Institute of Directors, said, I'm going to need a bigger door to get that title on. He said, we remain concerned that these proposals are using a sledgehammer to crack a nut and will ultimately make it riskier and more costly for business to employ staff at a time when business confidence is at its lowest point in 2 years. Well, you know what? If your business model is being a good boss to your workforce and treating them like people, not possessions, then you will probably be doing everything that is being proposed anyway. And if your business model is abusing your staff and taking them for granted, then these laws might affect you, and you probably shouldn't be in business. But what do I know?
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
My dog's been taken.
Josie says... I'm sorry to hear that, Donnie.
My dog's been taken.
His dog's been taken. Josie says, did you catch the programme earlier this week about the lives of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris? No, I did not. Interesting, says Josie. 98% of what came out of Trump's mouth was a load of old codswallop. Never knew somebody could rant on so much without saying anything. Well, it's when he does say something that you should be concerned.
Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month.
Can you believe that?
It is wrong. It has to change.
It has to stop, yes. All of that birthing must stop now. It's probably got something to do with China. 0345 6060 973. Orpington. Hello, Tony.
Hello, Nick.
Yes, Tony.
Have you been killing trees this week?
This tree menace must be stopped.
Just for the record, if anyone's listening, I accused Nick Abbott of saying trees were the enemy. I just would like to, for the record, retract my comment. He never said that, so I would like to apologise.
I am arbophobic, and I don't care who knows it.
Oh, don't. No. Yeah, no, I misheard you. I was getting ahead of myself anyway. So, yes, I just wanted to say that for the record. Now, before I talk about Trump, you were just talking about workers' rights. I'm all for workers' rights because...
You're a worker.
Well, I've always worked in the public sector, so which is great for sick pay and holidays. I've worked in the private sector once, about 10 years ago, never again, because I was treated... No, I wouldn't. No, I was treated harshly, and you don't get any sick pay, and you get like 20 days holiday a year. So if anyone's listening, I would highly recommend working in the public sector.
How many holidays a year do you get in the public sector? 20 days seems like a pretty long period.
No, that's 4 weeks. But you get. So I remember like working for I work in like local the councils and stuff like that. So, but you could have flexi time. You get you can have holiday whenever you like, and then you start off at like 27 days, but it goes up to like 35 days a year. But I know. But when I worked in the private sector, I was working in, I can't remember the name, it was in Green Park. I was a corporate receptionist. Can you believe that?
No.
No, I can't. But
how did you used to answer the phone? Without mentioning the company's name, how did you used to answer the phone?
Good morning, Barclays.
Yeah, but hang on. What if it wasn't the morning? Something more generic than that. Put yourself now. Say I called you in the afternoon. You wouldn't be saying good morning, would you? I think you're a chump if you said that. Yeah, but okay, but do something more generic than that. Like just imagine yourself, picture yourself sitting at that desk. The phone line lights up, and you answer the phone in the following way.
Hello.
Wow, you are fired. That is terrible. No wonder they didn't give you any holidays. You need all the training you can get. That was terrible.
No, you put me on the spot.
You're a disgrace to this company.
Oh, no, I would normally say, oh, hello, council tax, how can I help you? Be like that.
Right.
However, I fell asleep once on the phone. Oh, my God, it was so embarrassing.
And you're telling me that the private enterprise that you worked for was displeased with your efforts and you you fell asleep?
No, but they had unrealistic tasks to do. Like, you couldn't point and, you couldn't get any water or coffee. So I wouldn't recommend working on that. And
Right.
if you were sick, you wouldn't get paid, anyway.
And I wouldn't recommend anybody employs you. Message coming in from next door. As someone who takes calls, this is not me. Well, I do actually take calls, but I don't answer them like from cold. I don't do Russian roulette on this show. He says, this is for my glamorous assistant next door. He says, as somebody who takes calls, no one at LBC has fallen asleep and we work nights.
Correct.
See?
Okay, but this was like when I was working for loads of London boroughs, and I was like temping, and I was very young, so I was young and naive, but how I got away with it, I do not know. Anyway, Can we not talk about my personal experience? I want to talk about Trump now. God, I won't get employed again. Yes, so Trump, so the polls have closed down, haven't they?
What do you mean?
Well, Trump's now favourite again, isn't he?
They've closed down? What do you mean?
Well, not closed down. Oh God, here we go. You mean like
such an attitude at work? I can't believe it.
No,
the US polls, nerve-wracking. Imagine how I feel.
Well, but it's quite nerve-wracking thing. So if anyone thinks, because I've told my friends, I had like a friend who messaged me on Instagram, I haven't seen for a long time, and he was like, oh, I heard you on LBC speaking to Nick Abbot. And he was like, oh, I couldn't ever do that. But I remember listening to you like years and years ago. It took me 3 or 4 years to actually get the courage to...
Yeah, well, that certainly was a lucky streak for me. The polling at the moment is Kamala Harris on 48.5 and his chumpiness on 46. So you got that wrong too.
Well, no, I looked at like... the odds.
You looked at
I don't know.
Donald Trump's website, and it said it was fantastic. Yeah. Okay, this has been an inspiration, Tony, and please send your CV to the following address: 0345 6060 973. Sarah texts, "Hi Nick, hope you're well. Yes, I am, Sarah. Thanks for asking." She says, "Thanks for recommending Clarkson's Farm. I've just finished watching Series 3. And as a keeper of livestock, found it to be the most enjoyable, despite initial reservations. I've almost changed my mind about him." Yeah, that's right. People who don't like Jeremy Clarkson might actually like that programme. And it will teach you, it taught me a lot about farming. Because I always thought that farming was, quite a pleasant, sort of idealistic, bucolic kind of life. And out there in the countryside, just surveying the scene, and every now and again you'd go and milk a cow, making absolutely sure it was a cow. But none of that's true. It looks like an absolute rolling nightmare being a farmer, particularly lately, because the rains have been virtually non-stop for a year now. I went up the country on a train, and fields are still waterlogged. The water's everywhere, which means that their crops didn't grow, or there's too much insects of the wrong sort that are eating their crops, and they can't put the pesticides out because it just gets washed off, and all of this stuff. And all of that is covered in Clarkson's Farm. And it's the only programme on TV about farming that is actually enjoyable and funny. And when it ended, when I got to the end of it, I thought, well, what happens next? I mean, I've sort of felt like I invested some of my life in his. And I just wanted to, what do all those people do now? I felt quite aggrieved, actually, quite put out that he has excluded me from his life.
Nick Abbot on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
I think he's portraying a quite stupefying ignorance.
Craig emails, "I went into a major bookshop to get a copy of Bodger's new book. I couldn't find it anywhere in the biographical section, so I asked the lady at the till where I could find it, and she said it's in the fiction section." Craig, I cannot believe that you actually took the trouble to write that down. And then you posted it to me. What do you think, Bodge?
I can't comment on that.
Me neither.
Blah, 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 blah.
Simon in Windsor says, I'm a little bit worried because on a daily basis I look at the betting for the next presidential election as they don't often get it wrong. They? Who they? And this week there's been a massive swing towards the orange man. Might be time to lump on Harris if I thought the Americans would do the right thing. Yeah, making a bet about it don't make no never mind. What's that got to do with it? Stamford, Connecticut. Hello, Martin.
Hi, Nick. Back in 2005-ish, I used to take my in-laws down to one of Donald Trump's skanky casinos in Atlantic City. This was before he ran them all into the ground.
Yeah.
And in the Taj Mahal, he had this awful store of his own products, one of which was a Donald Trump eau de cologne.
Oh.
And I remember saying to my husband
the great smell of Donald. Ugh.
There you go. Well, I think I said to my husband at the time, that smells like, well, you know what. So, fast forward 20 years, and are you aware that he farted on stage in Detroit this week, just a couple of nights ago?
This is hot breaking news.
I know a lot about wind.
He knows a lot about wind. No, I did not know that, Martin, but thanks for illuminating that for us. Don't strike any matches. Thanks a lot, mate. 0345 6060 973. Simon and Nikki on the Ashby Canal, if there is indeed such a thing, texts the following. The name rapeseed comes from the Latin word rapa or rapum, which means turnip. Rapeseed is a relative of the mustard plant and is part of the cabbage family, which also includes broccoli, cauliflower and mustard. Well, where does the turnip come into it? I'm deciding not to believe any of that. And it don't make... Who cares if it's Latin? They could have chosen some other word. Why does it have to be called rapeseed? I object. I mean, you just don't want to... You don't want something that's got the word rape on the label in your cupboard, do you? Mike in Sutton says, Hi, Nick, it strikes me that James Cleverly made a fatal flaw... F-L-O-O-R. He made a fatal flaw. What is that? One that's got an uneven surface and you might trip.
Warning, warning.
That's a fatal flaw, that is. Take care. He says, it strikes me that James Cleverly made a fatal flaw entrusting his campaign to Grant Shapps. He should have used Nadeem Zahawi to count the votes. Also, what do you think of fruit pastels? Never had them myself. I will look into it and report back to you. Thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate that. Yeah, maybe Nadeem Zahawi should have done the counting.
And one.
Two.
Two.
Oh, what's the point? 0345 6060 973. Let's see now. Heston. Isaac.
Nick.
Isaac.
Hello.
Hello?
Right.
Can you hear me?
Two things.
Yes,
I can. Two things.
Couple of things.
First thing. Yeah. I stumbled across the result of the Tory leadership contest.
You stumbled over it. You found it on a fatal flaw. Yes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, on the Daily Express YouTube channel. You know, I was surfing the net.
The Daily Express YouTube channel. Is there such a thing?
That's right. And I thought, oh God, all right.
Oh, here we go. Yeah, go on.
Yeah. So it was only about a minute or so seconds, and so I clicked on it, and then I looked at the comments below.
Yes. Oh no, the comments.
Warning.
Don't look at the comments on any news story. Go ahead.
And I'm just going to pick one, and it's probably my favourite, from the Daily Express YouTube channel.
Right.
And
they were explaining why it's all Meghan Markle's fault.
And this person said, we are now down to the last to useless incompetence.
Yes.
That was
Right. We've had there was one useless incompetent,
and one,
and then another.
Two,
yeah,
absolutely, and long may they reign in the political wilderness. That's all I can say.
Exactly right.
Okay,
they are the gift that keeps on giving to the Labour Party. Go on.
Absolutely. Second thing is, I'd like us listeners, and possibly with your help as well, to start a weekly campaign to find the 700 billion pound COVID money that went to the wealthy.
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Leave it with me, Isaac, and I'll have a big bag of it on your desk first thing in the morning. All right.
Okay.
So another satisfied customer. Text from Amanda says, "Oh no! If all will go so well, what are we going to be angry at?" If all will go so well. If what all? And who says it will go well? She says, "I am used to being angry all the time after practicing for the last 14 years. Well, there's a lot to have been angry about over the last 14 years.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And Stephen Wimendum texts, "Hi Nick, Tree of All Wisdom, can you explain why water isn't wet?" Is that a joke? Like, why is water not wet? Because, I've got no idea. What does that mean? Can you explain why water isn't wet? Water is wet, you idiot. And I mean that in a kind and supportive way. 0345 6060 973. Chelsea, hello James. Excellent. That was my favourite call of the evening so far. Let's see if we can top that. Sunbury, Darren.
Hello, mate. How are you?
Yes, good, thanks.
Yeah, I was upset about... I called up a couple of weeks ago. Have you got your bathroom renovated yet?
No, it's all been ripped out, and most of it's in a skip.
I was upset because I think you're quite an honourable man from what I can hear.
But,
and yet you said you wouldn't let a tradie use your bathroom.
No, tradies do use my bathroom. They avail themselves of my bathroom in large amounts. But when the new one goes in, I don't want them to use that one.
Why is that a problem? Because often that's the first thing that goes. I used to do it for 15 years. It's a young man's game now. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
But that's often the first thing that goes in is 'cause people have to do their business.
Yeah.
But
I don't want people.
What's wrong with you? Why are you so heartless to let people not?
I'm not asking them to hold it in for the whole day. They can use one of the other two disgusting bathrooms or toilets that I've got in my in the grotty pile that I live in. But I'm not the new one. I don't want I don't want someone's area to hover above my new toilet. That's all.
I tell you, I ask people their permission before.
Yeah.
And 9 times out of 10, they're the absolutely loveliest people. Mm-hmm. But the 1%, the 10% that don't, I tell you, it's a secret among the trade, my friends. Mm-hmm. And you will realise this. They're going to use it anyway, mate. And I don't know what sort of... it was a bit of a thrill I got out of it. Do you know what I mean?
I'm going to tape it.
I'm going
to tape it shut.
What?
I'm going to put like a security, like a chain around it. I'm going to have cameras pointing at that toilet at all times. Don't you worry about that.
What's wrong with you?
Well, have you got? How much time have you got, Darren? 0345 6060 973. He actually genuinely did sound annoyed, didn't he? It's just a radio show, Darren. Don't get upset. Blimey. And anyway, you're not fit in my bathroom. What do you care? I just don't want tradespersons of any description using my new bathroom when it goes in. I don't care if they use the old one before it gets all ripped out. Couldn't care less about that. And when they need to go, I'm not one of those people who will insist on them getting a porta potty to put outside the place. They can use one of 2 other toilets, no problemo, but not the new one when it goes in. Nobody is using my pistachio-coloured facilities except me, and that's a fact. That's all I'm saying. Is he back again? You threw him away and then you put him back again. Are you listening to me? Hello?
Sorry, mate, I was on the phone. What was it?
Oh, he was on the phone. Oh, well, something way more important than me. You carry on with your conversation. I'll just wait here. Don't take all the time you need. It's a live show.
Nick Abbott. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
You know, nobody has done more for Christianity. Nobody has done more for religion of all type than me.
David in Teddington says, Nick, I'm just about to buy a copy of Donny's version of the Bible, and I wondered if you'd like me to order one for you. Apparently, it's his favourite book, so I wonder which character he likes the most. The guy who did all the miracles seems like a smart person. Yeah, but he's not as smart as Donny, though. Definitely not as smart as Donny.
Trust me, I'm like a smart person.
Because he's like a smart person. God came to me and he said, Sir... God said, Sir, you are the best thing I've ever invented. I said, thank you. He's selling his own Bible. and still his ding-a-ling fans are going to vote for him. I mean, come on. How is that possible? It's like we're living in an alternate reality. Well, they are, that's for sure. Salford, hello, Rob.
Hi, Nick. Yeah, a bit of news on the radio today. The proposal to reduce pint-sized glasses to 3/4 size glasses, with the view of reducing alcohol consumption.
Yeah.
I think that is not only really annoying, but counterintuitive. It's actually going to increase alcohol consumption.
Really? I think it would probably reduce it, because people just buy a drink, don't they?
Well, some people might, but if you're stood at the bar for 10 minutes, 3 deep at the bar, and you're going to be waiting for, 10 minutes for 3/4 of a pint? I think you'll be buying 2 3/4 pint glasses. And if you're with your mates, you're going to be buying, say, with 5 mates, you're going to be buying 10 glasses of beer.
I don't know. I mean, when you go abroad, you don't buy pints. Like if you go to Germany or Holland or, where other countries are available, then no one sells beer in pints. It does seem like a particularly large amount of liquid to pour down yourself, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I don't know. When you're abroad, in a little taverna abroad, you can get it served pretty easily. I think in this country, the drinking ethos is a different thing altogether.
Yeah, that's precisely what they're trying to address. That we drink to get drunk in this country, rather than just as like a social libation.
Yeah, there is that element to it, but no, I'll stick to my guns on that one.
Right.
I think people are going to be buying 2 on a lot of occasions where it's easy to buy 2 instead of going back for another one.
Right, but I don't think that anybody is going to mess with the pint. I think that, if anything, it will be offered in addition.
Well, no, this is what they're saying. They're going to scrap the pint pot and bring out the 3/4. That's what they've said.
Rob, I'll bet you every stitch of clothing that I'm wearing right now that they don't do anything of the sort.
You imagine the amount of space you're going to need for the extra size glasses.
Yeah.
And all the washing up, it's going to have to increase bar sizes, it's going to have pint glasses, it's going to have 3/4 pint glasses.
Well, you could say that about half-pint glasses, that they had to wash them up because people will drink twice as many of them.
This is the thing that was mentioned as well. Why don't people just buy half-pint glasses?
Yeah, because a half-pint's not quite enough. I mean, I do get that. A pint's a bit too much sometimes, and a half-pint's not quite enough. So something in the middle makes sense.
Yeah, you don't see people buying half pints, though, do you? It's why don't Yeah, why don't they go down that route if they want to reduce the consumption that much? You know, if they was really determined to reduce it, they would go for the half pint, wouldn't they?
Rob, I'm offering you, on me, 3/4 of a pint of beer. Would you like one?
I'd rather have a pint, please.
I'm sorry, but I just don't have that much money on me. So you get nothing. Thanks a lot, Rob. He's a very, very concerned customer.
Booze.
Someone is shortchanging him, booze-wise. They're not going to get rid of the pint. You kidding me? They might as well come over and shoot our dogs. No one's going to do that. This text says, and every time anybody does anything that is pub-related, any government pulls in a regulation, like smoking ban. Do you remember the hoo-ha that accompanied the smoking ban when it first came around? I mean, so many people, well, that won't work. And people are just going to completely ignore it, and no one will go to the pub anymore. And I mean, they were telling you two different things were going to happen at the same time, both of which were disasters. That people either would not go to the pub anymore, or they would, and they would ignore the new regulation about smoking. And neither thing happened. People continued to go to the pub, and no one smoked anymore inside. And the difference that it made was just like chalk and cheese. It was revolutionary. Of course, without the hideous tobacco smoke in a pub, you could actually smell what a pub smelled like.
Dreadful.
Which was pretty awful in most cases, yeah. A lot of carpets had to get changed, and a lot of ceilings had to get painted. You wouldn't believe it, kids. That the ceiling on the pub, if they haven't actually decorated it in a while, in the last 30 years, it didn't used to be that colour. That's cigarette smoke, that is. This text says, please, please, please talk about James Cleverly not getting to the last two. Thank God they reminded us about how incompetent they are. Yeah, not so cleverly after all. Yeah. I'll talk about Robert Jenrick in a while. There's nothing you can do to prevent me from doing that. Copenhagen. Hello, Suk.
Nick, I just wanted to, I wasn't going to, but I'd like to raise a formal grievance in the first instance. Isaac normally comes on after midnight if he's still listening, and he took my slot. And I had to wait patiently.
Who's Isaac?
Isaac from West London, who does his some kind of due diligence for the week and then gives you 1 or 2 or 3 points that you listen to patiently. So
he's been on this. He's been on this show already.
Yeah,
I must have dropped off.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I just wanted to. Am I allowed to raise James Cleverly? Or did you want
of course
to
you are.
Later?
Yes, so absolutely.
I just wanted to write. It was so amusing. So just to give you a bit of background, and I've got a slight grievance with the Labour Party to begin with, and then I'll move on to.
You have many different grievances.
I do.
I thought the people in Copenhagen were supposed to be HAPPY.
We are indeed. So to begin with, when I used to live in the UK, I'm a big Blairite. He was all about education, and went through the university scheme, did reasonably well, got a job. I, bought a few assets, landlord, etc., which now are in the crosshairs of Labour now. So I feel a bit aggrieved with Labour now because I'm almost the Frankenstein monster of what Labour wanted to create, and now we seem to be the enemy. But that to one side, I'm still
So you're the enemy because you bought some properties and are renting them out?
Indeed, but we were absolutely on Blair's side in terms of education. I believe is a great equaliser of society, and that's what really pushed me to try and strive and do well in life. But now it just seems, from my own perception, that by having one extra property rather than the one I live in, I somehow am doing well for myself, when not really. It was just trying to protect my future and security. But that to one side. I mean, look, we're still Labour supporters, but I just wanted to focus on James Cleverly, that the mantra that he gave that was rejected. I actually wrote these bullets down just for you to actually just
luxuriate. Yeah, go ahead.
He asked, let's be enthusiastic. Let's be relatable, positive, optimistic. Let's be normal.
Normal.
And all of that was rejected.
Yeah.
And there's a great journalist by the name of Gary Gibbon in Channel 4. I don't know if you know the guy. And he pulled up Marc Francois, who, as you know, speaks in very pausing terms, and he said, "Look, what's the difference between you now giving this out to your membership when you produced Ian Duncan Smith and Liz Truss?"
Yeah,
that's the same issue.
Exactly.
So I just wanted to get your views, Nick.
These are the people who are going to select the next leader of the Conservative Party are the geniuses that brought us Liz Truss.
Absolutely.
I mean, what could possibly go right? And if he was trying to appeal to the normals in the Conservative Party ranks, James Cleverly, then that wasn't very cleverly at all, because they're not remotely interested in normal. They're interested in punishing whoever comes over the horizon, regardless of who they are.
100%, Nick. And one thing I wanted to ask you, what do you think in terms of the budget? We're all getting quite nervous about what's happening. What do you think they need to steer away from rather than the things they need to do? Is there something you've got on your mind or something that you think, look, they really need to steer away from?
Asking me questions like that is what they need to steer away from, if that's any help.
No,
I ask the questions. Thanks a lot, Suk. Impertinent, little bit. 0345 6060 973. Paul in Shoreham says, "Hi Nick, here is a summary of the pros and cons of the Tory leadership candidates. Robert Jenrick, pros. Isn't Kemi Badenoch. Cons, is Robert Jenrick. Kemi Badenoch, pros. Isn't Robert Jenrick. Cons, is Kemi Badenoch." He's just nutshelled it for us. Thanks a lot, Paul. Gruesome and gruesome-er. How did they end up with those? I mean, of all of the people in all the world, they had so many people to choose from.
I don't know anything.
Like him, for instance. They could have had him in a, they could have installed him. They could have had this guy.
Yeah. Wait.
They probably will again. I wouldn't be remotely surprised if they reinstalled Mrs. Unclear.
I'm genuinely unclear.
She remains unclear. LBC, Nick Abbott, 11 o'clock.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbott.
Are you trying to tell me that this is your act?
Hang about, Nick. Listen. Now, what I'm trying to say to you is this, Nick, right?
Dave in Cheshire says, "I read Russia are plotting to cause mayhem on our streets. Somebody should tell Liz Truss, beat them to it." Yeah, that's right. And if Liz Truss ever gets back in number 10...
Emergency, everybody to get from street. Emergency, everybody to get from street.
Mike in Sutton says, there was a business owner on LBC this morning moaning about the new workers' rights. He was genuinely trying to argue that it takes a year to make chips. Seems a bit fishy to me, says Mike. A year. It doesn't take a year to make chips. 15 minutes, tops. 0345 6060 973. Andrew in Cumbernauld.
Good evening, Nick. How are you doing today?
I am great, mate.
Good to hear it. Just to disagree with a couple of points.
Yes.
If I may be so bold. The first one was the pay to pubs in the UK.
Mm-hmm.
I just checked there to see that in the year up to March this year, the UK lost 240 pubs.
Yes, but that's not the result of the smoking ban, because that was ages ago.
Yeah, I think a part of it could be a legacy of it, but a part of it... Well, okay, fair enough. We'll agree to disagree.
Do you really think that people aren't going to pubs because of the smoking ban, rather than a pint is £6.50?
Well, that's part. I think is a big part of it. I think what a lot of it is, or would have been, is that when they couldn't smoke a lot of the people that used to go out to pubs to smoke with their pint or whatever, then they completely stopped going out to drink in licensed premises entirely.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
You don't buy it?
No.
Oh.
Why would you leave your house in order to go somewhere else just for the ability to smoke? I mean, you can do that in where you live, surely.
Yes, I mean, and that's the point. If you used to be able to go out and smoke and have a drink, but you can't do it anymore, you will now not go out. You will now not go to the pub.
Right. Well, you also can't hit your wife when you're in the pub. Maybe we should reinstall their ability to do that.
Well, I very much doubt that was public. I think that was always private, wasn't it?
It depends how far back you go. But I'm not remotely interested in people's ability, people complaining about, they can't smoke here and you can't smoke there. Neither should they be able to. Why should they befoul the air that everybody else breathes?
Yes, I don't disagree with you by any means, but I don't think it's to write it off as to say that the pubs aren't affected by it. I would have to disagree with you there. But I also think your other point earlier on when you were saying what constitutes a middle class job, and you were saying that a lot of the more senior clerical jobs are shown as counting as being clerical,
as middle class,
as middle class.
Yeah.
I mean, I do a clerical job, but I've suffered something like a 25% cut, real terms pay cut, over the last 15 years.
Yes.
And I don't think my net spending power these days by any means qualifies me as middle class anymore.
I think it's more a state of mind, isn't it?
Not always. It's a state of bank account more often than not.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure that that's true, because if a plumber earns $100,000 a year, does that make him middle class or working class?
I would argue that these days, a lot of these things are now changed so that somebody like an electrician or a plumber or a plasterer or a train driver who are on much better net incomes than they always used to be, have now very much gravitated towards becoming middle class.
Right.
Whereas a lot of the more traditional, what you described as being middle class jobs, like some of what used to be better paid clerical jobs, aren't anymore.
Right, middle management, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, maybe not middle management, but maybe what would have been the senior clerical before.
Yeah.
Their wages have.
No, I get that, but the class that you're in isn't necessarily defined by the amount of money that you earn, although that is a major factor. So let's agree on that.
No. Yes, to an extent perhaps, but there'll be a lot of families who progressed, who, let's say, their great-grandparents or great-great-grandparents were working class, and they are now middle class.
Yeah.
But they probably these days would not count themselves as being working class anymore.
Right.
Whereas maybe the first generation that went from a working class.
I get. Yeah, all right. I get all that, but I mean, my point remains the same: that the middle class are not going to get squeezed out by workers' rights being imposed, as the right-wing press would put it, on businesses.
No, they won't. Not a bit of it. But it just the definition of what counts as middle class or working class is evolving very much.
On this show, Yeah,
and part of that is, to a real extent, it's not just down to what you do, it's the lifestyle.
I know. Well, we're going over old ground here now, Andrew. Was there anything else?
Right. No, that's just to make those couple of points.
Okay, excellent work. Thanks a lot, mate.
0345
6060 973. Matt in High Wycombe says, I heard on the grapevine those horrible European French people are now controlling our weather for the explicit purpose of ruining our grape harvest, thus forcing us to import their inferior wine, which I might add will be a great cost to us because of the Brexit debacle that they imposed on us. Well, up with this, we will not put.
Voters have had enough, and they are saying, up with this, I will not put.
No, that's right. Smug. I've got detailed files about people controlling the weather. I mean, the stuff that the public believe, I mean, particularly the public in America, is just absolutely amazing. I mean, you read it and you think, no, they don't believe that, do they? But yeah, they do. I'll come to that in a while. 0345 6060 973. Oh, look, it's Jonathan in Harrow. Harrow?
Good evening, Nick.
Yes, Jonathan.
Oh, I'm aching.
You're aching? Why is that?
Because I went to the boxing gym again, and I was paired up with... Now, I'm not a racist.
But?
Yeah, well, now, listen. But he was a quote-unquote young German teenager. I mean, he wasn't. He was, I think, like Syrian or something like this. And he was very irritated that he'd been put with a balding, obese man. It's true.
And he used you as a punch bag?
He midway through, he refused to do the fightings with me. And he was all... And I don't want to do culture war points. But with the sort of white Russian trainers, he was, like this. But with me, nothing. So... that's what I come from today. And this house is too big for me.
Wow, we really are skipping around the topics, aren't we? It's too big for you. How come it's too big for you?
Well, because I told you I was almost homeless, so I had to get one of the biggest houses I could just to make myself feel better.
Yes. Well, that makes perfect sense.
I was telling your boy, the Tom, Kentish, I was telling Kentish that I'm struggling financially because I keep buying art for this house, and I was wanting a first-class Virgin flight, and I can't afford it.
Well, that
but
must
he
be...
cut me off.
That must be...
I did.
He cut you off.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, I'll keep that action in mind as we progress. But you're in great financial straits because you bought a big house and a lot of art. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that's one point. But look, I don't have long, so I wanted to get to a quick few political points.
Yes.
Because I know you keep talking about Olukemi Olufonto Adegoke Badenoch.
I wasn't aware of that, but do I? Yes.
That's her full name. That's her full name on the Wikipedia.
Is it?
Yeah, Olukemi. And I know that you and all of your LBC folk, you are now all, like I said, you are like the Greek chorus for our Kia leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, you all love him, even though he seems to me to be quite funereal and reminds me of a Hoover salesman, personally. I'm being honest with you.
A vacuum cleaner salesman, you mean? Yes.
Yeah, he needs, no brand names. He needs lessons from whose interview I watched yesterday?
I don't know. Whose interview did you watch yesterday?
Two, actually. One was Kamala Harris.
Yes.
She was with the Howard Stern. I know you're a big fan of his.
Howard Stern.
You might even be friends with him because you're a big DJ.
No. No, and no, I'm not, in that order. Go on.
No, but you talk about him in good terms. I mean, in the 90s, his conduct on air was disgraceful.
Yeah,
but now he wears a suit and he interviews the walkie presidential candidate.
He wore a suit? Well, that is disappointing.
But he's done a complete 360, but she is just like full of energy and all the things that Kia... I know I can't say bad things about Kia on LBC. Maybe I'll sing a propaganda song for him because he's great, isn't it?
Yes.
But she is... so I watched her interview. I watched two Conservative interviews, one with Boris and one with Douglas Carswell.
Oh. Okay. What?
Now, very quickly, if I can say, Douglas Carswell, he is the slightly less... He's like a sort of uglier version of Dominic Cummings, right?
If you say so.
Yeah. And he was on the Patrick Best-David podcast. And if you ever watch that podcast, in an hour interview, he illustrated all of the bad things about the Tories. He was rude. He was smug. He kept bossing about the people who worked on the PBD podcast, and he couldn't even get the website up. It's 3 for 3. Arrogant, can't get the job done, and quite privileged. He was actually, the day before him, not to be controversial, but the day before him on the PBD podcast, there was Puff Daddy's bodyguard, who was a gangster from America, and even he was more sort of, behaved with more alacrity.
A gangster, yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, but could I make a quick last point about the Boris, if I can?
And finally, go ahead.
You will not like me saying this, because I know the country is now perfect under Kia and the ladies in his... It's him and all the ladies, isn't it?
Yes.
It's him, Lemmy, and all the ladies.
Right.
But I watched a Boris Johnson interview yesterday on Diary of a Podcast, Diary of a CEO, and he's still got it, I think.
It?
Like, it was very engaging.
Oh, I thought you meant that the pills hadn't worked.
No, come on. Because I know that you are bigging up the Labour changes. I will quickly say this to end that, as you can tell, I'm not a big fan of the Keir leader, but these employment law changes will be good for me because usually to sue an employer, you have to wait 2 years.
Yeah.
So I have to usually create some of the tribunals have said vexatious reasons. They've called me vexatious litigant. But no, listen, the youth are all, the youth are talking about two things nowadays.
Go on.
Who is introvert and who is extrovert as celebrities.
Right.
And they're talking about Eminem becoming grandfather. But, the last job I got sacked from, I took them to tribunal because I maintained my boundaries and said, I copied a line from the bill, the bill, and they invited me out for drinks, and I said, Fridays I just go to bath and then bed, and I was firm in my boundaries, and they sacked me in a week.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, either I don't get it, or there wasn't an it to get.
No, there wasn't it. I'm just saying that's when they sacked me, so I had to think up vexatious reasons. But now under the Keir leader, I will be able to sue more people.
Yes. It's a dream come true. Thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Would you mind telling me what this is all about?
Honestly, dear, I have no idea. This text says, regarding the polls in America, the right-wing billionaires are screwing the betting and the polls to narrow the results so that jail's next top inmate can plausibly steal the election. He knows stainless steel toilet pans next to the bed better than anybody. Everybody says so. Well, there is some truth to that his enablers are screwing with the polls as much as they possibly can, and the betting, in order to make it seem, when they try to steal the election if they lose, in order to make it seem like they're doing the right thing, to make it appear as though Donald Trump was going to win when the true picture was that he wasn't. I mean, it's why still people in America still refuse to believe that Donald Trump lost the last election. It's because they own... And the phrase that you'll hear a lot is, everybody I know voted for Donald Trump. And that's because everybody they know votes for Donald Trump. It's not that they know a lot of people and then they voted for Donald Trump. They only know them because they vote for Donald Trump. And all of those safe space rallies that he used to do, well, still does. Everybody there is holding up a sign that says Trump, and so it's like they don't meet anybody that's not a fan of Donald Trump, so they can't believe that more people voted for somebody else, Hillary Clinton in that case, than voted for their Lord and Saviour. And that's why they still can't get their heads around the fact that Hillary Clinton got more votes than Donald Trump, and so did Joe Biden. It's just that Hillary Clinton got more votes and then still lost, but Joe Biden didn't. Leori in Nottingham says, please accept my sincere apologies. I should be listening to you now, but I'm still watching Rebel Ridge on your recommendation. Not long to go. I'll join you as soon as it finishes. You're right. I could see him being the next James Bond. By the way, I blame Meghan Markle for me missing your show. Thanks again, Meghan Markle. No! What will you not do to make us suffer? Yeah, Rebel Ridge. It's pretty good. And the guy that's in it, whose name I can't remember, it could be the next James Bond. I was thinking that during the course of watching it. He's British. Born in Brixton, apparently. He didn't sound like he was in that film. Sounds American. He probably believes in chemtrails and Bill Gates injecting microchips in your mind. Aaron Stone... Yeah, that's right. The message from next door. Aaron Stone Pierre. That also doesn't sound very British, but he is. Could be the next James Bond. That is as long as the world can put up with a black James Bond. Plymouth. Hello, Julie.
Hello, Nick. Hope you're well.
Yes, thanks.
Good. Black James Bond, what's wrong with that? Well, I don't know. People are mad. Anyway...
Well, no one's complaining about it yet. Not yet. But
Not
you know
yet.
what?
Give it time.
Give it time, exactly. On that subject, I do another podcast called The Nick Abbot Habit, where I go through old shows and clip out funny bits. And this is just 2 years ago, Christmas 2 years ago, can you remember that one of the major supermarkets had an advert on TV that featured a black family?
Yes, yes.
And people were talking about boycotting the supermarket because they were outraged. This was 2 years, not 32 years ago, 2 years ago.
Yeah, a lot of supermarkets, especially around the Christmas time, I've noticed that they try to do mixed families, trying to keep everyone happy, as if we're that shallow and that silly.
We are, apparently.
Oh, gosh, Nick. Well, I'm glad you've gone for pistachio. It's not avocado, no? It's pistachio.
It's various pastel shades. I've not gone white.
Oh, lovely. Sounds very nice, very tranquil.
Well, you're not going to go on it, Julie, no matter how many times you say it's nice.
I'm going to pull up outside and knock and say, I'm desperate. Do you mind if I use your loo?
Yes,
and you'll be like, no.
Yes, I do mind. You can go on. You can go on the step in front of the door. I don't care. You're not coming in.
No. Fair enough. I wanted to chat to you about, obviously, of late, you've been getting lots of callers that are not happy with Labour and Keir Starmer and the new government. Yeah. And we've talked about the 100 days, and obviously it is, looming. And, stuff happens, like riots from other stupid people, and I was quite taken back by your lovely caller from Copenhagen, because he was sort of saying... I've been Labour all my life, and now, because I own a few properties that I rent out, I'm not sure I can be Labour anymore. It's a bit... I think he didn't exactly say that, but it's that thing of, I've won a lot through... not growing up because it was Thatcher years, but then the Blair years. I've probably lost a lot in the last 14 years. Maybe I'll come again and it'll be do better again now for a few years. People are just so they can't think of the bigger picture. I'll be happy if other people get something out of, after what we've all been through, apart from the 1% or whatever. If other people get something out of this new government, I mean, as long as if I don't get anything out of it, then that's what that's okay. I'll manage.
Here's the thing, Julie. I think Roger Waters, out of Pink Floyd, got it right. One of the greatest lines in the history of rock music: "Share it fairly, but don't take a slice of my pie."
Rock and roll! Exactly, exactly. I mean, I'm giving up pies, so they, I'm going to let someone have some pie, and I'm going to have, I don't know, I'm going to have a salad. But I mean, it's you don't seem like that. You seem like... You probably lost out. You probably will lose out a bit. But you don't seem to be like, well, I resent everyone else that's going to do a bit better.
The thing is, it depends on what the government spends the money on. Because people in Copenhagen, for instance, or the Scandi countries in general, they get taxed more, but their government takes their tax money and provides for the people. It provides a safety net, so they don't feel that just one piece of bad luck is going to send them onto the streets.
Yes, exactly.
And that's why they always top the World Happiness Index. It's not a coincidence that the same countries every year top the World Happiness Index. And it's not an indication that people are walking around laughing. It's that they feel comfortable.
Comfortable and content. Maybe we need a first-class flight for Jonathan to one of the Scandis, so he doesn't feel like he's going to be on the street, bless him. I don't know. I mean, I'm just putting it out there.
Yeah.
He told you he spoke to Ben, and Ben told him to phone. He hopes he phones again.
Really?
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah, that's right.
He's wonderful. Well, Nick, thank you. I just wanted to... I don't know. I'm just getting fed up of everybody being... I mean, like you say, amnesia. Everyone's forgotten about the last 14 years.
It's amazing how quickly they did forget that.
And the thing is, we're still there because obviously, as you say, it can't be changed overnight.
Of course not.
Oh, Nick, go on, sort it all out for us, please, my lovely.
Leave it with me, Julie. Thanks a lot. Cheers, my dear. 0345 6060 973. Derek in Cork. I'll have detailed files about Labour's polling in just a minute. If I don't get into it, then remind me. Derek in Cork texts, Professor Lichtman has predicted the correct president since the 1980s, except George W. and Al Gore.
Absolutely.
He predicts Kamala will win. He predicted Trump would win back in 2016 when everyone was telling him he was wrong. I cannot believe that half of America that intends to vote is going to vote for Donald Trump. I mean, what is wrong with these people? I don't mean to be mean, but it seems to be something wrong with them. If you put your ear to their head, you'll get this. This says, hi, Nick. The question, is water wet, often sparks debate because it depends on how wet is defined. If we define wet as the sensation or effect of a liquid coming into contact with the surface, then water is what causes other materials to become wet. In that sense, water itself isn't wet, it makes things wet. However, if we consider wetness to describe the state of a liquid adhering to itself or another surface, you could argue that water is wet in that context, so it's a matter of interpretation. Oh, blimey. We're doing philosophy now.
Boring.
I apologise. I'm very sorry.
I am very sorry that I screwed up. Totally I mean, I am so sorry. You just don't know how sorry I am. I'm sorry.
If I knew that text was P101, your first lecture, then I wouldn't have started it out in the first place. Is water wet?
Yes.
Yes, it is. End of discussion. Ash text, water is not wet in the same way that a fire is not burnt. I think that makes sense. Thank you for the giraffes this evening. Ash, nothing you just wrote makes sense, if that's any help. And Chris says, Wymondham is pronounced Wyndham. You're welcome. Well, why has it got so many letters that you don't pronounce then? That is infuriating. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's Wymondham, of which you only pronounce about half. What's the rest of them doing there? Just taking up space. I mean, the amount of ink that gets used just to produce letters that you don't actually pronounce. And I feel that much of it is just to catch the unwary out, those who aren't, in with the in crowd. The smart set. Like, where's Princess Di buried? It's written all thrup. But it's pronounced... No, it's Althorpe, isn't it? Althorp.
Correct.
But they pronounce it Althrup. Why? Just to catch people out. It's asinine. And don't get me started on Cholmondeley, because that's just too irritating for words. This text says, hey, Nick, water is just water. It can't become wet. It always is. Towel, on the other hand, can become wet when in contact with water. Yeah, I know that. I know that. Yeah, it's like that thing you get in a cracker that's not quite a joke. It's like, what gets wet when it dries? Any ideas?
LBC with Nick Abbott.
Everything is going extremely well.
0345 6060 973. Brendan in Blackpool says, has anyone seen the aurora lights this evening? I'm taking pictures of a dark sky with no luck so far and I'm getting tired, says Brendan. I keep seeing pictures of, and it's always the next day. I open the internet. Have you seen the internet?
Disgusting.
I open up the internet and they've got pictures of the roaring borealis everywhere. Like here, there and everywhere, baby. And I've never seen it with my own eyeballs. Only, I've seen the pictures of it with my own eyeballs, but I haven't seen it in the sky. Not in person, I haven't. No, it seems to be eluding me. 0345 6060 973. Greenwich, hello, Dennis.
I'm actually travelling from Glasgow, Nick.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, we just played up there. I just want to give you a wet weather report.
Go on.
It's wet.
Yes.
And it's raining.
Right.
From 3 o'clock this afternoon when we arrived, up until now. We're just driving back to Dumfries, where we're staying tonight.
Dumfries?
Yeah, Dumfries, sorry, yeah. It's been wet, it's been damp, but the crowd were amazing. So we played at St Luke's.
Oh yeah.
In the middle of town. Wonderful.
And what kind of thing do you play?
We're Rhythm and Blues band. I rang you a couple of years ago. We played with the Who. We started talking about the Who gigs in 1980.
Yeah.
We've been going a long time. But it didn't disappoint us. It was absolutely dark, damp and wet, but an amazing gig and amazing people. So we're just driving back to Dumfries and then
Dumfries.
Stockton tomorrow.
Don't say Dumfries to a local because they won't have any idea what you're talking about.
No, they can't understand us anyway.
No, they're probably not. No, and vice versa, I bet.
Yeah, exactly. But do you know what? I rang you last year about you talking about Keith Richards and his tuning and everything and guitar rhythm and I got cut off and I was so disappointed because what I want to tell the people is after Beggar's Banquet was the album Ry Cooder played on, and Ry Cooder brought the open G tuning to Keith. So if any Stones fans listen from out there, onwards from Beggar's Banquet, the Stones sound changes because Keith starts playing with the open G and he moves his capo up and down the fret to change the tuning. And so after you got then Brown Sugar, Honky Tonk Woman, Midnight Rambler, just amazing stuff. So I was so choked that I couldn't say that last year. But any nerd out there, from Beggar's Banquet onwards, Keith's got the open tuning.
Right.
From Ry Cooder.
Well, I certainly am glad that you made that clear, Dennis, but I have no idea what you're talking about.
No, I'll show you when I see you.
All right. Yeah, put it in a diagram and pop it in the post for me. Can you do that?
Yeah, I'll put some dots on the chords and the frets.
Yes,
and,
as soon as you get to
the
Dumfries, then you let me know straight away. All right, thanks a lot, Dennis. Good work. Cheers, that man. 0345 6060 973. He's bringing the joy of music.
Rock and roll!
To Glasgow and Dumfries and all points in between. Richard says, where have all the seagulls gone? What? He says, I just spent a week in Cornwall and I hardly saw any. Maybe they're holding secret underground meetings with a humble clothes moth, plotting our demise. Well, I've got detailed files about seagulls as well. Blimey, my head's spinning. I barely know where to begin. I want to talk about Labour polling. I want to talk about chemtrails. I want to talk about the conspiracy surrounding meteorologists. There's the World Wildlife Fund are talking about animal die-off, which is really alarming. I want to talk about Robert Jenrick and his various shenanigans. I want to talk about millionaires leaving, Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin, and plenty else besides. But I barely have time in a 3-hour show, mostly because these people keep calling me. How do they get my number? Notting Hill. Hello, Matt. Can I call you Mike?
Well, Matt would be better, I think, given it's my name.
Carry on, Mike.
Well, listen, I've been a fan of your show for a long time, but this is the first time I've drummed up the courage to call you.
Is this really Matt or Mike?
So this is Matt.
Yes.
And I wanted to know what you were making of the Boris Johnson book Fandango.
I didn't realise he was doing the Fandango. I would pay a lot of money not to see that.
I mean, he seems to have been interviewed by almost every journalist in Westminster.
Pretty much every journalist in Westminster, trying to get the scoop, trying to get the inside story, And what has he said so far?
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I think he said, it's not my fault. It was all like this when I got here.
I think the most peak Boris Johnson thing of all is him unapologising.
Yeah. He says he's not sorry at all. The only thing he's sorry about is saying sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, good work there, Mike. If that is indeed your name. 0345 6060 973. Mark in Epsom says, hello, Nick. Did I hear you right that you have a house with 3 toilets? I am reminded of the words of Will Smith's grandma when he was young and famous and owned about 10 cars. She said, Will, you've got 10 cars, but you've only got 1 butt. Well, that is true, yeah. Yeah. That is true. But, you know, sometimes you get caught short. Not when you're in a car, but, you know. 3 toilets. Yeah, I got 3 toilets, so what? And I suppose you think that makes me a fascist. Now, what shall I start on first? Oh, blimey, here's another one. Luton. Hello, John.
Hello.
Yes, John.
Oh, hi. Yeah. Actually, do you know Rick Beato? He did a brilliant YouTube clip on why are all the bands disappearing on the music theme.
Rick Beato?
He's a producer. He used to produce one of the big bands in the States, like Eagles or something like that. But he's just saying that in the top 10, there's no more bands emerging at all. So it's been taken over by sort of Taylor Swift and her duplicated whatever.
Yes.
And there's no bands like Queen. There's no one emerging. There's no sort of Fleetwood Macs in the background. You know,
no, that is unless they are emerging, and oldsters like you and me, John, we're not cool and hip enough to know who they are. Although I did listen to one band's new album because I was on a train and I was listening to I think they're called Public Service Broadcasting, which is a weird name for a band, but it's actually really good. And I was dialing around all sorts of, basically choosing, because I've got streaming. I do streaming now, baby. Oh, I am hip and with it. Groovy. And I was listening to albums based on how their covers look.
Yeah, I was just listening to. I mean, I never was into Journey when I was young, because I was my age thing. Yeah, I was in the punk thing, but they're brilliant. Some of their songs. Journey.
Are you kidding me? That Steve Perry, one of the greatest voices in the history of music.
Exactly. And you only get into it later on in life. Anyway, I was giving you a call quickly to actually plead that Americans would phone your show and explain why they are voting.
No.
Because I was having a pizza. I just thought, what's some entertainment? It's live, Colorado, where Trumpy live in Colorado. And he's actually opening up with a statement that 200 million evil rapists are about to invade your country.
Oh, my God. 200 million?
Yes.
Nothing to be alarmed about, no. But some of them are murderers and some of them are good people, I heard.
Well, I know, but the thing is, I want to know who is voting for him. And I'll just give him a number, +44 345.
Yeah, never mind about that. I don't want to talk to those people because they're all dinglings.
But can't you educate them?
No, they're beyond educating. You might as well tell a religionist that God doesn't exist, because if they stop listening, they are not on receive, they're only on send.
But it's just pathetic. But I thought I was watching a comedy show.
Yeah.
He gets this woman on stage and says, this great woman, she defended the evil Venezuelans from killing people in Colorado. And she goes on stage and she says, it's nice to be here. And she doesn't, she wheezes because she doesn't know what she's supposed to say.
No, well, you got it right. It is like a comedy show, and that's the annoying thing about Donald Trump, is that he is actually funny. I mean, he's not intentionally funny. Yeah. Nothing he has ever said intentionally is funny, but everything he says that isn't alarming is amusing.
Yeah, but the biggest thing that is alarming is what he's going to do about Ukraine and Russia, because I don't know. I mean, if he says he's going to pull out of any relationship with any kind of view on Russia, and that's pretty alarming.
Well, I mean, the whole of the human race is in great danger unless we are nice to Donald Trump, which means giving him a lot of money, even though
I make $400 million a year, so what difference does it make?
Yeah, sure you do, Donnie, sure you do. Says the guy who's selling gold-coloured sneakers and fake gold watches. That guy makes $400 million a year. The man who's selling Bibles, I mean, come on.
Oh, he's got his own Bible now. His own Donald Trump.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, his own personal Bible. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, what? It's a cult.
Correct. Of course, it's a cult. Yes. Hey, sheeple, wake up. It's later than you think. All right, thanks a lot, John. 03, and I definitely don't want to talk to those people. Because what would be the point? 0345 6060 973. I mean, here's an idea of who they are. You know, America has just suffered 2 hurricanes in a row. Well, Donald Trump's fans are calling up their local weather person on TV and threatening to kill them because they think that the meteorologist, the weather person on TV, is controlling the weather. They're not predicting the weather. They think they're controlling the weather. And so I mean, eventually one of them will probably do it. But at the moment, it's just threats. They've been deluged by death threats because Donald Trump's fans think that meteorologists are controlling the weather and sending it to areas where Donald Trump is favoured in order to stop them voting. They actually believe that. I mean, that's just one of the many Looney Tunes things that they believe, which I may get onto later.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott.
What are you talking about?
Talking about what Andy in Mansfield has just texted. He says, now that the Tories have chosen 2 candidates that are even more right-wing than Farage's hairdresser, and the Labour Party are now so far to the left that even Daniel Day-Lewis would struggle to play them, who's now occupying maybe, who is now occupying the centre ground? I can smell a Bojo comeback well after another 3 books of blather. Some of that made sense. I get what you're saying. A Bojo comeback? Oh, no.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
I mean, imagine giving that man a position of power again, rather than just allowing him to make those deranged videos to advertise his scribblings in the Daily Mail, looking like he's just slept in a skip. He looks like he's been on the run for 6 weeks. Boris Johnson looks like a ball of fat that somebody's rolled around the cuttings on a barber's floor. Ain't that right, Bodge?
I can't comment on that.
Blah, 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 blah. It was like this when I got here. Blah, 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 blah. Birmingham, Eileen.
Oh, Nick, hiya.
Come on, Eileen.
I haven't spoken to you for ages, gosh.
Well, haven't I been lucky?
Don't be like that. Blimey, Nick.
I know. Get me.
Do you know what, Nick? This controlling the weather thing. I've got a friend, and I swear, she's intelligent. She had a good job. She's normal.
Well.
She lives in a nice house. And we're in a cafe the other day, hear me out, and she's telling me it's this they, isn't it? They are controlling the weather.
Right.
And I'm looking at her, and I said to her, I won't say her name, not that she listens to LBC, but I won't.
Was it Judith? Was it Mary?
No,
Janet?
Don't be silly.
Alice?
Listen to what I'm saying. And I said to her, I looked it straight in her eyes.
Yes. All 3 of her eyes.
Stop it. And I said to her, if you can give me a rational explanation as to why any government would set their country on fire or flood it or cause a hurricane to sweep across it and destroy the economy, I'm listening.
I'll buy you a coffee and a cake, you said.
Yeah, kind of. And do you know what? They just shake their head and say, you don't understand.
No, you don't understand, Eileen.
You can't get through to them, Nick.
You're wasting your breath.
You are really seriously. And, you know, that's what bothers me. It's like, I mean, I'm very fond of this person, and I'm not going to not be a friend.
Yeah.
But it's like, you just can't cross that bridge.
Eileen, I have a similar problem with the person that I do a podcast with.
Oh, right, yeah.
Because Carol McGiffin and I do not agree on anything at all. And so in order for us to get along, because the podcast is worth listening to. It is a funny podcast, and we work really well together. That's the thing. And so in order for us not to actually kill each other, I personally came up with a wizard idea. It's probably the best idea I've ever had.
Go on, I'm listening.
We call it sausages and dingleberries. It is essentially our safe space word. If at any time one of us starts saying something that is going to cause a row, then one or other of us can yell out our safe space word.
I think that's a really clever idea.
And at the moment of that safe space word being deployed, you have to instantly stop talking about what it was that caused the problem, and then start talking about a prearranged topic.
Yes.
And this, by the way, keep this in mind, because Christmas is practically Jesus' birthday already. And so you will be having a meal potentially around a table with members of your family who you do not agree with on anything.
My family are on the programme. I mean, they're all dead left-wing, Nick.
Right.
It's my friends.
And so if you are faced with having to, spend some time under pain of being hungry with members of your family who you do not agree with, then here is a good game. Everybody writes a topic on a piece of paper and you put it in a big bowl in the middle of the table. And when your racist uncle starts bellyaching on about how great Nigel Farage is and how he should be Prime Minister, then one of you can yell out the safe space word and you pick a topic from the big bowl in the middle of the table and you will have to start talking about that.
Right. Yeah.
And then you can play Happy Families. You're welcome.
Thank you. Nick, listen to me. This is what I really rang up about, right? Now, I was telling this to your man who answered the phone. Yeah. I was watching on television. I know I shouldn't watch television. I should only listen to you on the radio. But I was watching telly the other night. Question time, Fiona Bruce from Pennsylvania in America.
Yes.
Now, she's got all the usual scenario. Do you know that I'm telling you the BBC would not allow a question about democracy?
What do you mean?
They would not let the people of that that went on that programme must have fielded at some point a question about what are we going to do about democracy at the American election, because that's what's up for grabs. And do you know, not one single question was aired about democracy.
Well, now, Eileen...
I find that very odd.
Well, I'm beginning to find you very odd. Now,
oh, don't.
You're spouting the same conspiracy theory nonsense that you've just been describing from your friend. Of course, you just told me that hang on a minute. You just said that the BBC wouldn't allow a question about democracy, and your basis for believing that is that you didn't hear one. That the one does not follow the other at all.
Now.
What are you talking about? You just said that they didn't allow a question about democracy, and my thought was that somebody raised the question and they were shut down. But they didn't even raise the question in the first place.
Am I to believe that nobody fielded a question about democracy?
Yes, you are to believe that.
Okay, maybe.
Right.
Right. So you see, you got through to me. No. Now that's the difference, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess so. So do I get a coffee and cake? Possibly. Okay, all right. I'll watch for it at my door. Thanks a lot, Eileen. Cheers, my dear. What kind of cake do they have over there, by the way? Because I don't want just any old cake. I mean, like a Victoria sponge. It's a bit boring. Have you got anything better than that? Like something with a bit of chocolate in it, maybe? Chocolate walnut cake. Ooh, I could have a couple of slices of that right now, as a matter of fact. In fact... if you put a couple of slices of chocolate walnut cake in a blender and then pour in some milk and then whiz it up, I could suck it through a straw. That sounds great. If you substituted some of the milk for ice cream, then you really do have something going for you there, Eileen. Think about it. 0345 6060 973. Mike in Sutton says, "Hi Nick, I've been out and got some fruit pastels. Personally, they're not for me, but I can understand the attraction. P.S. Watch out for the floor." What on earth does that mean? This text says, the late, great Rory Gallagher wrote a song called Smear Campaign about the US elections. Great lyrics and very apt for today. Well, that may be so. I don't know, because I don't know that song. I suppose you think that makes me stupid. This text says, pensioners and property portfolios is what Labour need to target. Doing a great job. Yeah, right, okay. Not so far they aren't doing a great job of doing that, but, you know, when the budget comes around, then we'll know really the direction of travel, won't we? I mean, at the moment, we're just guessing. At the moment, the press are just hyperventilating about, what may or may not come. And they're sort of setting up the things that they really, really don't want, like taxing billionaires, for instance. And they're writing ways about which, if the government does enact that, then it would be ruinous to this once great nation. So they're trying to head them off at the pass, as they say in the Westerns. James in Lincoln says, Nick, to answer the question posed by your caller from Copenhagen, perhaps Labour should steer away from attacking some of the most vulnerable in the country, pensioners, and tell us what they're going to do, and tell us when they are going to do what a Labour government should and make the 2% of the country who possess 60% of the country's wealth contribute to filling the mythical black hole that no one except Rachel Reeves has seen. Says thanks, says James. What, you don't think that the Tory party left this country in a state? Really? Well, then I have a genuine made-in-China Swiss Trump watch I'd like to sell you. 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Email nicka@lbc.co.uk. And if you're on WhatsApp, it's the same number as the phone. 0345 6060 973. Friday, Saturday, Sunday night at 10. Nick Abbot, LBC.
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC. This is LBC from Global. Leading Britain's conversation with Nick Abbot.
Hello, boys.
Oh, hello there. Very nice to meet you.
Yeah, we're still not missing you, Gavin, in case you were wondering. 0345 6060 973. This text says, the Tories were awful, but two-tier liar Keir is cohorts are extremely worse and dangerous to Britain. Really? It sounds like you translated that from the Russian. What are you talking about? This text says, Ben Kentish sounded rather baffled talking to Jonathan the other night. I can imagine. I'm permanently baffled on this programme. And this text says, the only people who seem to care about defining class are those who are at pains to put themselves in the working class. Everybody else knows it's a load of nonsense and doesn't give a bleep. Everyone else? What are you on about? We're riven with classism in this country. It's pretty much what defines us. Val in Lewisham says, your caller who thinks that people don't go to the pub because of the smoking ban, the opposite is the truth. I go to a pub quiz every week and none of my team smoke. If there was still smoking in there, we wouldn't be taking part. Correctamundo, Val. I wouldn't walk into a pub if they were still smoking in there. I just definitely would not do that. I think, if anything, the smoking ban saved pubs as much as as much as there are still pubs left. It's everything else that is doing for pubs. The price, the bores that prop up the bar. You know, I mean, we used to be a pub-going country, but I think we became a bit more continental. we became a bit more continental and a bit more stay-in-y. And I think that with much of everything else that has changed over the last few years, I think the COVID thing really supercharged that. Like, do you want to go out? Nah, not really. Let's stay in and watch and binge watch a series on the telly. It does sound a bit better, doesn't it, really? I think that pubs have, I don't know, they're just dying out. Things have their time, and then they just die out. Pubs. Beery blokes standing up, bellowing at each other. I worked in a pub for over 5 years, so you don't have to tell me about pubs, and that was during the period when you could smoke. God, the stink on your clothes when you come home after a shift. You put them in a pile on the bedroom floor, and were quite surprised they didn't just spark into flame. Renate from Austria says, "Hi. Further to conversation regarding the size of beer glasses. In Austria, beer is served in 500ml or 300ml glasses, and an even smaller glass size of 100ml is available, called a pfiff. That's P-F-I-F-F, which means a whistle, as in wet yaw. Huh. Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, a pint. I mean, no wonder beery blokes have giant guts. You're just pouring all that stuff in you. It does, is that improving your performance in anything? No. 0345 6060 973. Let's see now. Cornwall, Malcolm.
Oh, Nick, how are you, sir?
I am great, mate.
Yeah, Trump and Starmer and his Labour Party.
Yes.
Trump's not having a great week or two, is he? He's looking totally, I say totally, he's looking quite unhinged, isn't he?
He's looking deflated. It looks like somebody has let the air out of him.
And the things he's saying. I mean, before there was plausible lunacy. Now it's just utter madness.
It's just rambling, yeah. And he will change topic within the same sentence, and he just goes off, and then what he's saying just sort of peters out into nothing, and then it's like he's jolted awake again.
Yeah.
And I think there's something seriously wrong with that man.
But I think I watch a lot of it, of what's happening, Nick, and you've got the Kamala show and the Joe show that had a huge lift. But then I think the media, to be fair to Trump, they give him more than his share of coverage.
Yes. That's the reason. That's the reason why he became president, is because the centrist or left wing media, depending on your viewpoint, gave him free publicity in the hundreds of millions of dollars.
Well, we've had 4 or 5 weeks now of pretty much wall-to-wall Trump, and I think we've had a little bit less of Camilla, to be perfectly honest with you. But then again, she's only the VP, even though it is a campaign. She should be getting as much, but she's also got the day job as well, hasn't she, to be doing it while she's campaigning.
I don't think the vice president is really much of a job, is it? I mean, what do they actually do? Nothing much.
Yeah, exactly. But then, so there's that, and oh God, I don't know. It's the whole thing seems a little bit wobbly to me. The whole American situation, and Trump. I think the fact that the polls seem so close, I think that's really worrying, given the state of Trump. I don't think it's because Kamala is bad. I think, Nick, there's something suspicious going on with the polling. Personally, but
yes, I wouldn't be remotely surprised, and I think that the Trump's people would like to skew the polling so that it doesn't look, so that it won't look odd if he objects to losing, assuming that that's the way it goes. It would reinforce his claim that it had been stolen from him.
Yeah, and that brings us back to Britain, and I think the Starmer show itself that's entering a really weird phase where I spoke to you and the date I asked you to make a note in your diary, and I certainly made a note of it mentally in my mind, and that date was last August when I suggested that if the glorious day happens and Labour are elected, there are a few names to watch out for, because I think, they stand a good chance of messing it up. And the two I named were Lammy and West Streeting at Health. But it's turning out there's quite a few more than that. I mean, this girl, this lady at Transport and the P&O, I'm with her. I think she's 100% right.
Why would we want a company running one of our largest pieces of infrastructure who fired 800 of their workers in order to hire them back on less money? Why would we want a company like that? I mean, I do not believe that this country will miss them. Don't let the door hit you on the way out.
Bye-bye. But more worrying than that, Nick, is the fuss and the fight is all about them, and I think one of our ports, and them running one of our ports. It may be one of these free port things. Well, if that's the calibre of people who are running our ports, personally, I don't think they should be running our ports. And I think this girl is right. But the problem now for us all is that number 10 and Starmer, they've left that woman out to dry. They've said that is not number 10's view. Because she was saying, I personally have boycotted in my head and physically P&O some months ago. I don't want anything more to do with them. She's the Transport Secretary.
Well, I personally have not ridden on a P&O ferry myself, but then I haven't actually gone anywhere, so that doesn't mean anything.
So my thing is, no, that Starmer, all his stuff about Labour, unions, working people, that to me, because of Monday and this business investment conference thing, he is sacrificing all at the altar now of that financial conference on Monday. And I think it stinks a little bit that he is saying, our conscience over those 800 workers, forget that's irrelevant now. We're really not bothered about that.
Yeah, I don't think he said anything of the sort.
Well, I think he has. In saying we don't agree with the comments of the individual.
Well, that is not the position of the government. So that seems a perfectly reasonable thing to say. What individuals might say and get away with if they are a member of the cabinet, if they do get away with it, if they're not fired, then that implies a certain level of agreement.
But then if you look at the bill he introduced yesterday on workers' rights, this P&O thing is exactly that bill that he introduced yesterday.
Yeah.
And so, go on.
No, that's right.
Yes. So my thing is, the P&O thing, Nick, it was a huge opportunity to make a stance and say, actually, my Transport Secretary is absolutely right. But yes, we would love DP to carry on investing in Britain, but do it in a human, empathetic, sympathetic way to our British people and our British workers.
Yeah, you know what? This investing in Britain, this inward investment thing, starts ringing bells in my mind. Warning bells, because what that means to me is that foreign entities are coming in and they're just buying all of our best stuff. And now we find ourselves unable to come up with anything that we think of as being British that's actually owned by British people.
Well, but it isn't so much that. He's more interested in them buying bonds from the Bank of England to finance the public spending he's going to have to do. In fairness to him, he's going to have to spend money on investing in the country's infrastructure, hospitals, schools, roads, bridges, all of those things.
Right.
People, so he is partly stuck between a rock and a hard place, but I want it to come down more on the side of Britain and not, imitating and parroting the Tories and,
Well, we don't, until we see what the budget is like, Malcolm, then we won't know for sure what the direction of travel is. Let's wait till then and then start complaining. How does that sound?
Well, look, Nick, that's the big thing. People in business, anybody with an ounce of intelligence is saying, why on earth did he organise this conference before his own budget? He's got it horse before cart or cart before horse. He's got it the wrong way round.
Wow.
But business and finance wanted it the other way round, Nick. And he could have done it, but he didn't.
Right. OK. All right. Thanks a lot, Malcolm. 0345 6060 973. Always something to complain about. And Labour's polling, not that great. But it's like they've only just begun, but already it's not that great. It's not as bad as the previous administration, mind. But then, what is as bad as
this government?
As bad as that government? Well, the one before.
Absolutely.
And the one before that.
Yeah. Wait.
But apart from them, Leroy in Nottingham says, Rebel Ridge update. Just finished watching it. What a film. 5 stars. Any idea when they're going to make Rebel Ridge 2 if he doesn't get the Bond gig? No, I've no idea. It is good, Rebel Ridge. I mean, I'd never heard of it before I just fell over it when I was scrolling through Netflix. Other streaming services are available. And that guy playing it, all the way through, I thought, God, that guy could really be James Bond, if the world can get used to a black James Bond. This text says, Ian Fleming, fictional character, James Bond was a white son of a Scottish father and Swiss mother. Well, where does Roger Moore fit into that? If that is what you're complaining about, that it has to fit that. And by the way, the books bear no relation whatsoever to the film. I mean, none at all. Apart from a little bit of Dr. No, but that's it. 0345 6060 973. Oregon. Andrew.
Hey there, Nick.
Andrew, can you believe the polls are this tight?
I don't understand it.
No.
Apparently the economy he was good at giving money to rich people or something.
That's it.
It doesn't make any sense.
It's really incredible,
but then again,
actually.
the polling is getting affected. I think you said something earlier about how they're trying to set up certain polls so that when they come to say, oh, we've had it stolen from us, look, the polling. And there seem to be a few polls that seem to be playing that game. But it's very weird, isn't it?
It really is. I mean, I can't wait till it's over, but even when it's over, it won't be over, because I would imagine that there's going to be lawsuits for months. And in Georgia, in particular, they've just passed this law that says all of the votes have to be counted by hand, and there's 1 million or more of them. So that's going to take forever.
Yeah, the whole thing is, I mean, I really don't know what. I think they've been affected by the same thing that's causing the weather patterns and all of that. That's why I phoned in.
Chemtrails.
The lady was talking about that. This goes back till 2008, when I can first remember it. When Obama got in, they started talking about. So I was saying to the researcher there, I'm like, so apparently it's this thing called HAARP. HAARP came up in Fairbanks, Alaska.
HAARP, yeah.
Yeah, so now they're all... I mean, it's absolute crazy stuff, but... so that thing's coming back out of the woodwork now. It comes out every... And I have to ask, if Trump was so smart, how come he couldn't figure out how to work the machine? Because it was there for Obama.
Yeah, that's a good point, yeah.
You think, what's up with this guy? If he's so smart, I mean, that's where I'd want to be putting my adverts out to the tinfoilers, would be saying, if he was so smart, how come he can't figure out to work all of our machines?
Yeah, right.
I mean, the government machines, he was head of the government.
It's those evil Marxist communists from the deep state that have foiled him again.
Those are the ones, you know them. You met them when you were in the south for Oregon, right?
Yeah, well, that's right. But in Oregon, you will have avoided all of the hurricanes. You just don't get that kind of weather there, do you? You get snow up to your eyeballs, but not hurricanes.
We get snow, and we all sit here waiting for the big quake that one day will happen.
Right,
and
that's right.
It'll just be like everything else will look small compared to that. So,
yes,
it's one of those places.
Or as Donald Trump said, all of that new beachfront property.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know how he works out that's more beachfront property when you have less land. I mean, his maths is really bad.
Yeah,
maybe that's why he couldn't get the HAARP machine to work.
I guess so, yeah. He forgot what the PIN number was, yeah. All right, good work, Andrew. Thanks for that.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
This is preposterous!
Here is a call in Oldbury, and it's a person called Ranjit. Ranjit. Oh, there you are.
Mate.
There you are.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you now, yes. Are you talking in the smallest room in the house?
I'm moving back into my living room.
Right.
How are you doing? All right?
I am great, mate.
All right, I want to thank Charlie, come down all the way from Tilbury, right, to my shop on Monday to celebrate his birthday, and he bought his own birthday cake with him and his niece, Suzanne.
What?
And their friend Delight, yeah.
Right.
And I said I would mention it as soon as they're your number one fans as well.
It's his birthday.
Yeah.
There you go.
He was 89. Yeah.
Blimey.
And then, yeah. They come, honestly, they arrived a bit late. I think they arrived about 8 o'clock. And then they was going to drive all the way back to Tilbury. And I said, look, you know, he absolutely adores you.
They were just coming to see the sights of Oldbury, your shop.
It took them ages to come there. They found me up. They said, we're in Stratford up on Avon. I said, what are you doing up there? And I said, that's what models here. And they arrived. There were three of them. There was his niece, Suzanne, and their friend Delight.
Right. So what did they order with their cake? What goes with cake? A saveloy?
No, they had fish and chips, and then she's left me a number. I found her up, and she said they really enjoyed it.
I could do with a big bag of fish and chips right now, as a matter of fact.
Yeah. Well, you'll have to pop over, because a few years ago, Ian Dower, when he was going to do the Tory conference up in the Midlands, he was going to come and see me every day, and just you know, Jonathan, I heard the call right with Ben Kentish. You know what? Ben Kentish got overwhelmed, right, because he don't actually understand what Jonathan's about, right? Jonathan, when he's talking about Boris Johnson, he goes, I tell you what, I'm not gay, you know, but, I like Boris Johnson. I voted for him, you know. He looked like a white, I'm not gay, you know, but I'm not gay. He looked like a white cuddly bulldog. And Ben Kentish did not know how to take him.
Well, I wouldn't have known either. I just go along for the ride. That's all I'm here for.
He does make some good points, right? And then he's on about, you know, having his chauffeur and that. You know, regarding Donald Trump, you know, when you've heard that phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. Yeah. This kind of thing, right, where these dinglings, like you said, they might go and shoot some weatherman or whatever.
Yes.
Right? These kind of things are implanted in people's heads, right? You know, throughout years and years and years, right? Like now...
I'm not sure that's true. I mean, yes, for many things, but Donald Trump just came out of nowhere, because before he descended the gold escalator and you know, descended into our lives... He was just a game show host off the telly, and this sort of weird guy who was not popular exactly, but he was famous in the 80s for being famous, you know, one of those guys.
I know he was, but if you watch some documentaries on him, right, he was good friends with the Clintons, and he was good friends with the Bushes as well,
Right.
And he knew which side his bed was going to be buttered on.
Both of them. Both sides. Yes.
Both sides. So he pick and choose, But now these people, like, you know, you've had callers say it's a cult. It definitely is a cult, right? Now you've got James not so cleverly, right? He's out of the race, okay, in this country. And people want Boris Johnson back.
Oh, no.
What's the matter with these people?
I don't know.
You know, I can't, because if you...
I think they want to be entertained. That's it.
No, but hang on, Nick. You know what? People are living, more and more people are living on the breadline, And those are the people who are complaining. I've had a right rant with people, I said, are you complaining about VAT on schools, private schools, right? And people are saying, well, I said, what's your problem, right? Oh, if I had the money, I would have sent my kids to...
they'll say
answer?
It's the politics of envy, is what they'll say.
Why is it politics? No, it isn't politics, but this is how it's been indoctrinated in our heads, right? I says, listen, you haven't got two pennies to rub together. Yeah? Yes, I haven't, right? Okay. Why isn't your child's school just as good as Eton, right? Because those kids from Eton think that my kids have got fleas and they don't want to catch them. and Nick, literally, it's stuff like that. They say, oh, you know those common kids, you know, the
right, dreadful.
You know, plebs,
Yeah.
Us plebs, oh, they got fleas, you know. If you go and sit next to one of them, you're going to get fleas, you're going to get nits, right? I said, so now that they're trying to get, you're never going to have, even with, you know, like you, Malcolm from Cornwall, you're saying, right? I think Keir Starmer is too scared to go the full 9 yards to have a level playing field. I think he's afraid because...
What does that mean, a level playing field? What do you mean?
Okay, for example, you know, the P&O workers, yeah? I'd say, listen, mate, get that £1 billion that he was going to invest in this country, right, and stick it where the sun doesn't shine. I'll find £1 billion from 10 other different people, right, smaller investors, right, that will look after the workers.
There'll be no problem finding the money.
But,
if we want to sell off all of our infrastructure, which I don't think is a very good idea.
No, don't sell it. I mean, in this week, right, the chairman of Tata, he died, yeah? Did you know he used to donate 2/3 of his profits to charity and poor people?
I did not know that.
Yeah, Tata. That's what he did. He had no children, no nothing, and I don't know, I mean, I've been following him for a few years, yeah? So not all...
He makes breakfast cereal.
He makes tea, he makes everything, mate. He does a lot. What I'm saying is not all billionaires are evil, right?
Yeah.
But the ones that want to take over this country...
They are.
And if they are, because the National Health Service, I bet you, right, my mortgage, that within the next 5 to 10 years, the National Health Service is going to be taken over. It's going to be called inward investment. You know, these guys that were working for P&O, I feel sorry for those guys.
Oh, yes.
Well, yeah, I used to be a union rep, right, and a senior negotiator helping 650 drivers. I got a pay deal done because the company turned around, oh, Ranji, by the way, we're losing a lot of money. I said, shut it down then. Right, simple, shut it down. Don't move money from this box to that box, right, and in the middle, siphon it all out and do it. And we got a pay deal done. Both sides were happy. And Keir Starmer is in a position now, right, where he's got a majority, right? He needs to listen to all sides of his party, right, and take these people on. Don't be scared of him because he's not in any pocket. You know when people say, oh, he's in the pocket of the unions, like what you said?
It's absolute nonsense,
Yeah, who does the unions work for? They work for the members.
Millions of people, yeah.
Millions of people, not a handful. And this £1 billion that this bloke's going to invest in P&O or whatever, I'd tell him, I say, mate, see ya. We'll find us somebody else. We'll do it ourselves. Look at Thames
Would you
Water.
like to be the Minister for Business and start first thing Monday morning, Ranjit?
You know what? Honestly, if you got about 10 different people from around the country, right, who actually live on the, not on the streets, as in people like myself, people like yourself, who understand, right, bring us in, right, not as ministers, and say, right, what do you reckon the best way around this is? And that we would come out with stuff that would work.
Don't ask me for any good ideas. But
can.
I'd like you to join me in song.
No, it can happen.
Yeah, it could do, but I'm busy that day. Now, I'm a union man, amazed at what I am. I say what I think, that the company stinks. Yes, I'm a union man. Sing!
Yeah.
No. OK, Ranjit, got to go.
Nick Abbott on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
What number are you calling from?
0345 6060 973. This text says, and I'll read it as it's written, what this people are moaning about losing out on money under the Labour Party.
In the shimmer of fragrances, when promises are made, golden hues whisper in the guardian's shade, under desert skies, where the sun's fire glows, red sands gleam, and golden flows, a vow is held in the heart's embrace, guardians oath, time cannot erase.
And about things being pronounced in a different way to which they are written, Bob says Belvoir Castle, Belvoir, is pronounced Beaver Castle. If it was the other way around, you could explain it away as snobbery, but as it stands, it's puzzling why they wouldn't want to pronounce it as it appears. Well, it's not puzzling at all. It's the upper class who are trying to catch out the non-you. To show you up for not being in with the in crowd. Belvoir Castle is Beaver. Why? Absolute nonsense. 0345 6060 973. I'm actually going to get around to any of the things that I brought in to talk about tonight. If not tonight, then I'll do it tomorrow. By the way, we put this show and the Saturday show up the internet as a podcast. We take the news and most of the ads out, which means it's quicker to listen to. It's only available on Global Player, and it's called Nick Abbot, The Whole Show Podcast. So if you want to listen to the shows, then that's how to do it if you don't want to listen to it live. If you just can't keep your eyes open any longer, then that's the way to do it. Dial up the internet and ask for Nick Abbot, The Whole Show Podcast. It's on Global Player. It's only on Global Player. And Global Player is free from your app store or globalplayer.com. You'll love it. Tooting. Hello, Jan.
Hi, good evening.
Yes, Jan.
Yeah, I've got something, came across something interesting in the news.
Oh, yeah.
But it's about, I've got maybe 2 or 3 points to make, but they may be a bit interrelated. So yes. You're always speaking about the Nordic countries and Norway and how they're consistently ranked as the happiest. Yeah, they are. They're ranked as the happiest countries in the world.
HAPPY-ness.
But what's interesting is that I was looking at there's a lot going on about art and culture, but apparently the Norwegians are spending 1% of their GDP on culture and arts, but specifically to help to support the next generation of artists, to fund artists while they're developing. Yes.
Wow.
And that's great. And apparently, the UK. This is what I was digging around and found out from some of the points I got. That although the UK, like this, it's in a sense a global art place. Place for the arts, the free art, and there's so much going on, like in London. Yeah. And but at the same time, England apparently, the UK is spending the lowest amount of money on the arts and culture. And apparently,
after 14 years of
Wait a minute.
Of that, I would be surprised if it was any other way.
But Nick, what's interesting is that in Norway, they are giving a lot of that 1% of GDP is to help develop artists in their practice, whereas in England that's like the equivalent of the Arts Council in England, yes. But whereas the Arts Council in England has cut their funding to the artists and supporting artists by 18%. Mm-hmm. So on the whole, I thought, what's the thing I got? The culture and creative industries give about 109 billion to the UK economy.
Yeah, the creative industries I think it's second only to the financial finagling racket. In fact, it might actually beat it by certain measures, depending on what you say is the arts. But it's certainly one of the reasons, if not the main reason, why people come to this country as tourists.
Yeah. So, but Nick, what's interesting is that coming back to the Norwegians, they've been opening some new galleries, and I don't know if you're familiar with this painting, but that they've opened Edvard Munch, a gallery, and he's well known for this screen.
Yeah,
he painted this painting in 1893 called The Screen.
Yeah,
and
he did.
Yes. So the word angst is supposed to represent angst, and that word has come from the Scandi countries, meaning feeling of dread, anxiety, and anguish. But when Edvard Munch did this painting, he called it an infinite scream passing through nature.
But what's that got to do with their funding for the arts?
No, I'm just saying that.
You're off on a tangent. You're off on a tangent now.
This is the second point I want to make: is that they've also opened a lot of they've opened this special museum for Edward Monk. But what I want to say about that is that this, we're thinking about that they're using actually this painting of this screen as a tourist thing, whereas which is quite the opposite of the happy, representing. The Norwegians as being one of the happy part of the happy things. But this, as I say, to me, this is now my personal note on this, is that painting that Munch did in 1893 is representing angst, deep anxiety and dread in a spiritual and existential way. It could be like it seems to be like a message about climate change, where we're headed.
I think it's the condition. I think it's the condition of the human race and the condition of his mental state at the time at which he painted it. He also painted a lot of portraits. He was quite a good portraitist.
But they've got just a special museum just for him, for all his work.
Well, you'd be hard pressed to think of another famous Norwegian artist. Go on, I double dare you.
Well, that's why I've mentioned it, because I think it's interesting that he actually did the painting to represent an infinite screen passing through nature, which to me, on a personal note, would represent where we're going with this climate change.
On a personal note, that's just like every Tuesday. Yeah, I get it. I've got to go, but thanks for that. 0345 6060 973. Well, I did not know that Norway is spending 1% of its GDP on the arts. I mean, that seems like a reasonable thing to do, because the arts are what makes life worth living. I mean, medicine makes life more comfortable, but the arts is, it's otherworldly. It takes you to places that you would never have conceived of doing before. And what's odd is that we seem so dismissive of the arts in this country, and yet we are one of the world's great powerhouses. I mean, does anybody really want to listen to Belgian music?
No.
No. I don't mean that to be offensive, but it's just a fact. But people want to listen to British music. Of course they do. And British artists took the world by storm during the Britpop years. There was this explosion of, now whether you actually rate them or not is neither here nor there, but they became rightly famous, all those young British artists. And you could not say the same for France, for instance, which does respect and revere the arts way more than we do. And you know that we don't revere the arts by judging what the state schools actually do in order to inculcate their charges with a love of the arts. Absolutely nothing whatsoever. So we should do more, because, we've already got a head start because we're pretty good at it. You'd think that, a decent government whose interests were with the people and the nation would actually concentrate on the things that we were already good at. But they couldn't have cared less, because all they were interested in was the money. Ain't that right, Liz?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Just show us the KASH, they said. Waz texts, if that is indeed your name. He says, Nick, me and my mates are in Belfast. It's freezing. We need some hot air, he said.
Hot air. H-O-T-A-I-R.
This is LBC with Nick Abbott. Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Alexa, send a comment to LBC.
Come on, we're running late.
What gap? This text says, get yourself to Lake Louise in the Canadian Rockies. Great northern lights that reflect off the angelic snow and mountains. Well, that does sound a delight, but also cold. I'm not going anywhere that's colder than where I am leaving from. I'm just not. I'd rather stay where I am. No, thank you. This text says, just thought I would let you know about my experience about my knee operation in Spain within the social security system. Operation was last Wednesday. On the morning of the op, they telephoned to see if I would like to go in an hour earlier. I arrived at the hospital at midday and back home at 6:30. Monitored the whole time after the op until I left, and I had coffee and biscuits. Upon leaving, I was pushed in a wheelchair by a nurse to a car and assisted into the seat. I had my prescription, but was also given necessary drugs for the night time. And the following morning, just in case I couldn't get to a chemist. The hospital rang the following morning to check how I was, and I already have a date for a follow-up appointment with a specialist. Not just some numpty, someone who actually knows what they're doing. Well, that sounds like a sensation, whoever you are. But you didn't tell me what kind of knee operation it was, because there's knee operations and knee operations. But, everything you just described sounds like how it should be. Arrived at the hospital midday, back home at 6:30. Apart from the arrived at the hospital midday part, because any time I've ever been at a hospital, they say, can you get here by 6? Why does everything have to be so blooming early? Or if you're actually in a hospital and you're sleeping in a ward, why do they have to wake you up at 6 o'clock and then do nothing for like 2 hours? Oh, the doctor, he'll be around in the afternoon. OK, well, that's great. So couldn't I have had another 4 hours sleep? Why does it have to be at the crack of dawn? I don't get it. Oh, message coming in from next door. I'll tell you why, because that would be easy. Yeah, exactly. They like you to suffer. Jed texts, I grew up near Cambois and Oldham. That is Cambois and Ulgham. And they're pronounced Camis and Upham. Well, first of all, that's ridiculous. And second, it sounds a little bit rude. Little bit. Upham. They don't like it. Upham. David Romford texts, Hi Nick, Happisburgh in Norfolk is pronounced Hasbro. Well, for crying out loud. What a shame to replace the happy part of the word. Yeah, well, exactly. Happisburgh or Happysburgh in Norfolk is pronounced Hasbro. Why? That's just daft. Mary texts, Suitsgate. Is it Meghan Markle's fault? I don't understand that. But then quite often people will text in just as though they're having a conversation with me. And when I come back to actually read the text some hours after it arrived in, then it doesn't really make sense anymore. Oh, another message coming in from next door. Gosh, very verbal this evening. Suitsgate is Starmer getting a suit paid for him. Oh, right. Yes, the Conservative Party lost, I can't remember exactly how much, so I'll make it up, £64 billion. But I did hear that Keir Starmer once took a paperclip home from work. No! So that is the moral equivalent, that is. Honestly, the stuff you read in the Super Soaraway press, they're trying to create some sort of equivalence with the absolute catastrophic clown show that we've just suffered for the last 14 years, and Keir Starmer accepting a couple of freebies. Whereas every single thing that he has accepted, you could say the same times 100 for members of the Conservative Party. But because of the cute little workaround that David Cameron enacted when he became Prime Minister, none of them had to actually claim it. It's just members of the opposition who had to claim. If you were found to be in a football match, but you were the Minister for Regional Development, then you could say, this has some great relevance to my position. I need to be here. And so they didn't have to claim it. Their department would. And that's why the Labour Party were taking up almost all of the top 10 of the most egregious acceptors of freebies among the MP class. They weren't. It's just that the system is screwed up to allow the Tories off the hook. Funny, that. This text says, yes, Nick, Donald is funny. He's eating the dogs and cats and the pets that live there. Well, that's just a fact. Yeah, he is eating the cats and dogs and the pets that... and, by the way, it's worse than that.
They're eating the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country.
It's a disgrace. People are going to vote for that guy. And not a few either. Millions of people. Getting on for 100 million people are going to deliberately go out and vote for that man. This man.
Right now, in a number of states, the laws allow a baby to be born from his or her mother's womb in the 9th month. It is wrong. It has to change.
I mean, funny, yes, but alarming too. No? Aren't you just even slightly concerned, America? America? Are you listening to me? Oh, there's this.
I'm doing great with black men.
He's doing great with black men, Melania.
I don't care.
She's actually not that bothered. Couldn't care less one way or another. This text says, hi, Nick. Sounds like you know Trump's got the election sewn up. Harris seems to be imploding. Was always on the cards, I'm afraid. Harris seems to be imploding. In what way? Mr. Anonymous Texter. I'll assume that it's a Mr. because, you know, they usually are. This text says, I was getting groceries earlier today, and while in the cheese section, I noticed a cheese called Red Leicester. It occurred to me that it's the only Labour-supporting cheese on the market. Do you think Skier knows? Hey, Liz, we found a Labour-supporting cheese.
That is a disgrace.
Yeah, she's very heavy on that whole cheese issue, is our Liz. We're still not missing you, Liz, by the way, in case you were wondering. She still looks like a shop window dummy that has been mounted on a robot vacuum cleaner. That fixed grin when she walks through crowds, trying to pretend that she can't hear the journalists' questions, which are usually of the sort, are you ashamed, Liz? As though she's going to stop and answer that. I mean, sometimes I think I could be a journalist. No, all right, okay, I'll take that back. How many more of these have I got? Can I actually just end the show reading these out? Oh, my God, there's so many. This says, I am so glad that Cleverly got cast out. We can now look forward to several years of continued Tory box of frogs entertainment. Bob Generick or Kemi Badenough will be just mad enough to take the shine off the mundane adults who seem to have got the chairs at the big table. Yes. Yeah, it's about time that the Conservative Party did the dance of the Looney Tunes. I can't imagine them being a serious force for a considerable time, because none of the top two seem, to my eyes, to be serious people. I mean, they're a continuation of the clown show.
Yeah. Wait a minute.
It says, I am cheering on the new Tory leader of either Dumb and Dumber. To me, more like gruesome and gruesomer. I don't know about dumb. Gruesome, yes. Dumb, I don't know. I mean, they may say and do dumb things, like painting over the cartoon murals at a children's reception centre, like that, and then claim that he rued that decision. Did you hear why he said he did it in the first place, though? I mean, I was going to come to this earlier on. I don't really have enough time to get into it now. But I'll talk about it tonight, assuming that nobody calls. How those people get my number, I really don't know. But they call and they call. Why can't they leave me alone? He said, well, maybe I'll do that tonight. If you missed it, it's worth hearing. His reason for getting those murals taken off that wall of the welcome centre at a children's migration facility. And now he's sorry he did it. Yeah, OK, sure you are. I believe you. Chris in Middlesbrough says, I had a good mate who went down this weather control rabbit hole and a lot of others. It's got to the stage where we had to part company, as I was an asleep sheep or something, and he got quite abusive. This is how cults work. Sad, says Chris. Yeah, I want to talk about this tonight as well when I come back at 10 o'clock tonight. It's amazing how deep the rabbit hole goes. And I'm not getting to a Matrix thing now, but to get lost down one seems to be you get lost down them all. Like there's a warren of burrows down there. Go down one hole and you'll meet lots of people who believe not just the thing that got you down the hole in the first place, which might be, you know, people are controlling the weather with space lasers. But go down one hole, and all of those people are in there, and what they believe one, they believe all, and it's chemtrails, and Donald Trump won the last election, and on and on and on it goes. And I maintain that this idea that I came up with is one of, if not the best idea I've ever had in my life. Because there will be a point like this guy, Chris, in Middlesbrough, who gets to the stage that he can't be around his mate anymore, which seems sad, really. Because there are a million other things in the world you can talk about. But you will gravitate back to the things that irk you about that person, because you want to sort of snap them out of it. You want to say, hey, wake up, sheeple, it's later than you think. Don't do it. Have a safe space word. Make it into a game. An amusing game.